Okay, we're sitting today with Angela Tormey, who is not only a member of our B&I chapter, she owns and runs Ace Maven Legal, but more importantly than that is she is an ex-vet, has been deployed, has quite a bit of experience, is going to give us some insight on two factors which I'm really interested in. The first one is her experience in the military. So how did you experience it, specifically knowing that it's such a masculine dominated industry, and trying to fit in there as a woman. I did a deep dive yesterday on the struggles that women go through in the military, trying to just kind of switch your mind to try and survive, and literally it's a survival process to kind of be in that, let alone just being in basic training but being deployed as well. And then you left the military, you retired, you came out, and then you went and studied to be a lawyer, right? Which has now led you to where you're sitting in Ace Maven. And you've done this with your partner, Tommy, who you met in the military, and you guys have transitioned from that military relationship out now to the outside.
Which both of you are Air Force veterans, and he's firefighter.
Right.
So that to me is an interesting dynamic I would really want to dive into.
So he's still serving.
Yeah.
And, for me, I think, take us back to, how old were you when you joined the military?
I was 19. I think I was 19.
And what was the decision? How did you wake up one day and go, I'm going to join the military, or was this a family thing?
No, so my family history for the military is very few. My stepdad, I believe he was drafted, had an uncle that was drafted, so that was all Vietnam era stuff. And then my grandfather on my mom's side had served in the Army. He was in Korea. But it was it was a man's thing to do. Yeah. It was, the ladies don't do that, right? So
where's home? Where'd you go to MEPS? Where's home?
Atlanta. So I'm from North Georgia.
Atlanta?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, that was
the biggest one you could get to. Yeah.
And that creepy old man is at every one. The one, right? Okay, yeah, that one.
Okay.
So I had I took the ASVAB when I was in high school, which is the the entrance test to figure out if you're
smart enough to do a good job.
You're Army. You said it. I didn't say it.
Yeah, I passed mine pretty well.
So
I got a good score.
You did?
I did, actually.
Well, I took it because I was like, I want to get out of class that day. So they said, if you go to the cafeteria and take the ASVAB, you don't have to be in class for this period of time. I was like, all right, cool, I'm out. So I took it, not expecting anything at all. And then next thing you know, so I was living with my grandmother at the time, which is a whole other story for another day. But I was living with my grandmother at the time, and so when the scores came out, all these recruiters are coming to my house, and they're knocking on the door. And my grandmother, who was the now ex-wife of the Korean War vet, she was just like, no, my granddaughter's not joining the military, and it was a big deal. It was like, this is not happening. And she would hang up on them. She would shut the door in their face. It was like the worst. So, fast forward a little while later, I was, I think I had already graduated high school, or I was close to graduating. I ran into a military recruiter at my high school. And back then, in the small town that I'm from, the recruiters were not allowed a table in the front of the school. They had to go back toward the cafeteria where almost nobody would see them, because it was like frowned upon. Yeah. Not frowned upon, maybe that's not the right word, but it was just not.
They didn't want to put it up front and center.
Right.
Tell me the approximate time frame again. You don't have to say like actual years, because if you don't want to age yourself. But
I was 19 when I went in. So,
what years? Is this pre 9/11?
Yes, pre 9/11.
So, okay.
Yep. So pre 9/11. So I had initially I had looked at going into the Marine Corps. Yeah. And I was like, this is cool. This is what I want to do. I had a little bit to do with the uniforms. We can all agree that they have the nicer uniforms. Yeah, and then I saw an Air Force recruiter coming out of the Marine Corps office one day, and he's like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm joining the Marine Corps. He's like, why would you do that? So ended up talking to the Air Force recruiter and was like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. So we looked at jobs, everything like that. And I said, he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to work with canines. And he said, no, you scored too high on your ASVAB. You can't do that. And, much love to my security forces guys and gals out there, but he wouldn't let me do it. He said, nope, you need to go into something that
too valuable.
Yeah. Okay. This big brain. So I ended up with a guaranteed job in one field, and probably, it was like a week before I was supposed to ship out.
Yeah.
I got cold feet and said, nope, don't want to do it. So at that point, I was just like, I know, I'll figure it out. I joined a garage band. That's another story for another time. But I was in the band for a little bit, and then decided again, okay, well, let's look at this whole military thing again. I'd gotten into a fight with my mother, and called up the recruiter and said, you know what, if I'm going, you need to get me the hell out of here right now before I change my mind. So within 3 weeks, I was out the door on my way to basic training.
How far apart from the first time you tried to go until when you actually went
I
on?
think it was probably about a year, 14 months, something like that.
Okay.
So, and given it a little time to kind of sit with it for a bit, and I was like, okay, I need to go.
So let's take a couple of steps back. So growing up, you're a young girl. Did you see yourself joining the military? Was this even in your wheelhouse?
No, not at all.
So when was the point where that actually became an option?
I believe it was more a defiance thing. So it was kind of like, I'm going to do it because you said I can't.
Okay.
And in thinking about this podcast and coming on here, I started thinking about just all of this stuff and came to a small realization, which those of you who know me would probably say, well, duh. I do a lot of things out of spite.
Okay.
Just because somebody said I can't. And it's like,
okay,
I exist merely out of spite. So it was basically to say, well, you can't tell me what to do. You're not the boss of me. I'm going to go into the military, not realizing at the time that there's where all the bosses were.
Yeah. Which is interesting to me. So from a foreigner's perspective, so South Africa had you had mandatory military service up until 1993, right? So before my time, I planned to go to the military, but it ended at that point. My years growing up, there was nobody, and when I say no one's trying to get you into the military. Right, so it doesn't exist now. So fast forward, I come to the States in 2006. I stayed out in Texas, and every time I walk past a military table, I have guys following me. And I was like, what the hell? They speak to me for 5 minutes, realize I'm a foreigner, and they go find better avenues. The sales.
I'm surprised they didn't try to convince you a path to citizenship.
They couldn't, because I asked them. I was like, maybe this is the way to get it. Unless you already have a visa, as in a permanent resident visa,
you can't do it.
You can't. There's no pathway, right? So they can't take a pure foreigner and just insert you into the system, which is not a bad thing. I wouldn't suggest anyone do that. Yeah. But what I found interesting was the sales techniques, right? Because before I explained to them that I'm just visiting, the way they try to engage me was, these guys are really good salesmen. Right? Like they're selling the whole dream, right? Have you ever driven a tank? Like, no. You can.
My recruiter told me that reception was a little bit like going to check into the hotel. I was like, oh, okay. Not thinking it was that big of a deal. Yeah. Well, it's the worst hotel you've ever been to.
Yeah, but that's, again, ascending to my point. So, a young girl, pre-9/11, post-9/11, I can really understand someone saying, I want to serve, after something like that's happened to your country. I get that. Pre-9/11, right, and I understand the defiance point. So they're offering you these jobs, right, and K9 obviously didn't fit out because we've just established that that's not for less intelligent people. But which jobs stood out to you? Right, so if you're looking at this, which jobs?
What she said. I got you back.
So what jobs stood out to you? So this guy's busy. This recruiter's sitting there, and he's like, don't join there. Join here. Join the Air Force. Right. What about the Air Force? Because I get if you want to be a pilot, and I'm speaking from an ignorant standpoint, right? If I want to be a pilot, I get to join the Air Force, right? But now, what jobs is he punting to you that you go, this could be something I want to do?
I don't think it was necessarily the job aspect of it. It was initially they did this thing where they said, okay, what they had these little look like name tag things. They said, what's important to you? Earning a paycheck, education, job security, those kind of things. And they have you like rack and stack them, and you go, oh, okay, well, yeah, money's good because. Who doesn't like that, right? Yeah, money. Education, sure. I just finished, just graduated high school. So I'm like, I don't really want to go to school, but sure, if it's there, I'll go. It was more of the experience of it, I think, is kind of what they sold me on was, you get to go do something where you're earning college credits, and that was part of it. I'm like, I don't have to actually sit in a classroom, and I'm still kind of going to college or getting college credit, but I'm not sitting in a classroom. So that was kind of cool, and I'm not having to pay anybody to do it. So that was.
The military is good about that. You go through your job training, they'll give you like local community college credit for just the training.
And that's really the parts that I'm interested in, because if you think of a young person, right, and I think today it's a little bit worse, but even back then before 9/11, when 9/11 happened, it changed the patriotic stamp of the United States. Right?
Absolutely.
Before then, Vietnam War, Korean War, we hadn't been in war for a long time, and what I find is between wars, people kind of lose a little bit of patriotism, right, because there's no reason to fight.
Right.
And as that ramped up to that main event, making the decision to go in there is the one thing I think the US does really well compared to other countries, right? Most of the recruits who go into the military, and if you know any of the other military standards, either you have to go into military service. If you're in Israel, you have 2 years mandatory, right? So you're kind of forced into it. We're watching people in Ukraine get pulled out of cars. 40, 50-year-old guys getting pulled out of cars and forced into military and pushed onto the front line. Russia, you have to. There's no choice. Korean countries is there's kind of a choice, but the military's not that good. Right, so it's always been interesting to me if you look at the military-industrial complex of the United States, which is essentially the safeguard of the world, right? How do you get people to want to actually be in the military? Now, I know the first answer to that is just the pure, the idea of the United States flag, what you're fighting for, the Constitution. Those are all set. But as a young person of 19, to physically make that choice of going to do something, you don't know where you're going. You don't know like you've never been through this. It's like giving birth, right? If before you give birth, you don't. People can tell you. You don't really know what's coming, right? And the military is kind of the same, because they're not going to tell you what's really going to happen, because what you go through is very different. And Kevin shared a lot of his experience. I've spoken to other vets who've told me what their experience is. So to convince a young person who can comfortably in North America sit home, find a job, watch TV, kind of do the things that they want to do, to join the service, to me is a fascinating part of why the United States is the military power it is. And what was your experience? So now you sign up, you get on the bus, you go. Mm-hmm. Was it what you expected it to be?
No, it's never what you expect it to be. So I came in, so when I actually shipped out and everything, I came in guaranteed electronics.
Okay.
So they said, whatever your job is, it'll be in the electronics field. So still had no idea really what my job was going to be. I was still secretly kind of hoping for K-9, even though I know that's not in the electronics field. But I was like, well, maybe something will happen. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So I go in, a couple of weeks into, I can't even remember when it was, but at some point during basic training, you kind of put down they give you this book, and it has all the job descriptions, and they all sound really cool and really awesome. And you're like, oh man, that looks cool.
Military's good at that.
Yeah.
Good marketing. They sound really
Great
good.
marketing.
And then they even tell you like where your training's going to be. So if you're like me, so the gateway to the Air Force is Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. Yep. So I'm like, anything that gets me the heck off Lackland is what I want to do. I don't care. So I was picking my jobs in the electronics career field that didn't have a follow-on training at Lackland.
Okay.
That's exactly what it was. So, but so getting on a plane in Atlanta, flying out to Texas, I'd never really been on a long flight like that before. Get there, and we had one person that had our packet of all of our orders, and we all had to follow her. And it was like, she's got your paperwork, you got to stay with her. So it was like, we get to the place, she goes up to the guy, and then the screaming happens. I'm going to put it back. So at that point, you're shuttled onto a bus, you're taken over to Lackland. It's nighttime. They do that on purpose to get you, they drive you around the base. Now, I don't know if they still do this, but at the time.
I think they do.
Yeah. It seems logical, right? Mm-hmm. So they drive you around the base, get you kind of disoriented. It's nighttime. They drop you off at a building, and you're all standing there. You've got, basically your stuff, and then you're there. And they bring you into this room, and then they start talking about what flight you're going to. And nobody knows what that, unless you have a background or somebody that's been in the military. You don't know, flight, squadron, wing, all that. So they tell you what flight you're going to. And one of the questions they asked was, they said, was anybody here in band in high school or college? And I was like, that sounds kind of cool. And I almost raised my hand. I was never in band, by the way. I can't read music. But I was like, man, that sounds kind of cool. And then I was like, nope, Angela, don't raise your hand. The one thing my recruiter told me was don't volunteer for anything. Just keep your hand down. So I sat there, and then they shuttled them off somewhere. Come to find out, they were in the band flight for basic training. And I was like, well,
the band has the good life.
I was like,
in the military,
dang.
The band has the good life.
Yeah.
They get royalty treatment.
Man, but I was like, don't volunteer for anything. So
you missed that bus.
Missed that. Well, I mean, they would have found out really quickly that I can't read music. And they would have
sent you right back.
Maybe that would have been my gateway.
Drums.
Maybe that would have been my gateway to K9.
Things together, the cymbals.
Just follow the beat.
Nope, not the right time. Do it again.
Do it again. Yeah, I need more cowbell. That's me. Right
pretty
there.
much.
So yeah, that I get shuttled off to another building, and I mean, it's just screaming. I mean, that's you gotta. They run through everything. They tell you go to bed. You get up the next morning to more screaming, and I just remember them telling us, because the beds in basic training, you have like white sheets and this green wool blanket.
Yeah.
Green gray. They just tell you cover the white. Just cover the white. And so you're trying to cover everything up, and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I am. And then that's when basic training pretty much starts from there. And so
let me hop in on this. So I know my experience with going in, and I literally visualizing everything you just said there, because I lived it too, and in the Army. So I know that for men, this is a part I'm kind of curious and interested about. So for men have they're just fundamental DNA is that they need to serve a higher power. They have a higher calling. That's why a lot of kids like males like sports, because it becomes something that's not about themselves. So they carry this fundamental DNA, going to sports, to military, that's about a higher purpose, a higher calling, a higher cause. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying women don't have that, but help us understand a little bit into your mind of, is there a calling like that where you need to feel like you have to serve as a woman, especially going to the military? Because I asked this because I remember that exact time that you're talking about, where when I was in basic training. Now I was post 9/11, so there was a quote patriotic aspect of it.
Right.
But I went, what the fuck was I thinking? Why am I here?
Yeah.
I'm sure you had that same moment.
Oh.
So then, in my case, I leaned on, well, it's a higher calling.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do?
Yeah.
So for me, growing up in a very small town, now there's not really a whole lot to do. We had one loop that everybody cruised, Friday, Saturday night. It was, that's just what you did. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of the carpet industry is huge in my hometown. So a lot of folks that, when you graduate high school, if you don't go to college, which I had no interest in at all, you either go get a job and, you just start working. And those jobs are, fast food, something in the carpet industry, whether it's, manufacturing, something like that. And the running deal was, they said, if you work third shift at most of the carpet places, you get paid more. So it was like, well, if you're chasing the dollar, you got to work third shift for a while. And I was like, no, I like to sleep at night. Don't like to do that. So as far as the calling and everything like that, feeling like I needed to serve or do something, I don't think I really felt that. I think it was more or less like, well, I got to do something. Modeling career wasn't taking off. Singing career wasn't taking off. And I was like, okay, well, what else am I good at? Well, okay, I'm good at being funny, so I'll try that in the Air Force. And they don't like it when the TIs like it when they're funny. They don't like it when they're funny. Yeah, I
feel you on that.
Yeah,
I messed up there too.
Yeah.
And that pathway actually makes a lot of sense, and especially they've had a massive uptick in the amount of people joining the military, obviously because of the changes, right? Mm-hmm. But your ability to pivot in the military when you don't have a path is way higher in the military than out the military. That's math. Mm-hmm. Most people who go to the military have a path to education, they have a path to different job skill sets. You can forge a path in there. Right. However, that part where they drop you off on the bus, you get off, that training, and Kevin elegantly explained to you, it's controlled chaos. Mm-hmm. Right? In your mind, it's chaos. Now, that chaos factor plays into a man's strengths because he's testosterone driven, right? Men's focus points is we can prioritize 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Women's are slightly different, right? So women's, when their cortisol levels go up, their ability to focus goes down. Right, so stress changes the focus aspect, and women tend to focus. If I give you 10 tasks, you're going to try and get all 10 done in your mind instead of focusing and prioritizing. That's women are slightly driven. In a lot of aspects, that benefits them. Studies show that women in the military, especially under those conditions, tend to either become highly masculine. So you have to kind of fall in and become one of the boys, or fall out. There really is no middle ground. What was your experience in that? Who did you have to become to be successful?
So, interesting question. With our flight, so we were in, I don't know.
Was it mixed or was it separate?
That's where I was going. So we had a co-ed flight.
Yeah.
So, males on one side of the hall, females on the other. And we were separated by doors, cameras, all that stuff. So it seemed, for me, I was like, man, it seems like the guys have a lot more fun over there. Like we're just like, we're just like little Susie homemakers over here. But what we ended up doing, and I thought it was really fascinating, was instead of us doing, the 10 tasks and trying to get them all done and all of that, we would divide and conquer. So in the evenings, and I'm sorry if I out anybody, I don't know if that's going to happen, but in the evenings, the TIs, our training instructors, were not allowed in the female dorm because we had male instructors. So they weren't allowed in the female dorm. So what we would do is we would put towels over the little speaker box there so that we could open the door. And we would open the door and the guys would come out into the little area there, and they were better at doing things like shining shoes. We were better at folding t-shirts. Yeah. So we would pass our boots over and shoes and stuff like that over to them. They would, or they would sit out in the little hallway area. That's interesting. And they would shine and we would fold and then we would change.
Who came up with it, females or males?
I honestly don't remember.
I like that though, because that's technically hacking the training, right? You're finding your skill sets, which then dives into the next part, right? So as you go through this training section, right, and the training is different for men and women, right? It's obviously because of physical differences, but there's benefits in certain aspects of having women within the military, right? And it's from a strategic standpoint, from a nurturing standpoint, there's so many benefits to having them in. How did you feel fitting into that role? So now you're going through basic training, you're kind of establishing your role, and did you eventually wind up in electronics? Was that where you winded up?
So for the electronics career field, when they give you that book with all the fancy descriptions of all the jobs, I don't remember what all I listed. It was probably 5 or 10, something like that. I ended up in satellite communications. Okay. So, and I was like, I don't know, satellites, that sounds smart, fun, I don't know. And now the thing is, they button hooked me. So the deal, I told you that I was looking for places that got me off of Lackland Air Force Base. So the job said that the first training was at Keesler Air Force Base, which is in Biloxi, Mississippi. I was like, casinos, like beach, Mississippi, that's fun. That'll be cool.
Mississippi sucks.
Well, so actually they had changed it, and the training was right across the street from Lackland at Medina. Yeah, they got me. And so when I got my orders, I'm like, I'm getting the heck off Lackland. I'm going to Mississippi. This is going to be great. And then I look at it and I'm like, where the hell's Medina? And they're like, right across the street. Remember where you went over there to do your M16 training? You're going right over there. And I'm like, dang it. So they bust me across the street. And I was like, man, this is awful. But, at the time, that was the electronics portion. So you learn soldering, you learn how electricity works and how electronics and diodes and resistors and all the things. Things that were absolutely not interesting to me, but I seemed to grasp them. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's logical. Okay. And then you go from there to the second part of your school, which for me was at Fort Gordon in Augusta, Georgia, which is just a couple of hours from home. So I joined the military to get away from home, only to end up back in Georgia. Yeah. So, I mean, it was, yeah. So, once I got into it, though, I started finding some interesting parts about it. Okay. And then my first duty station was here in the Panhandle, so 4 hours from home. Again, I joined the military to see the world, and there I was 4 hours away from home. So,
where were you, Eglin or Fort Walton?
Eglin. So, yeah, so they have So there's Eglin, and then there's Hurlburt.
That's the other one, Hurlburt. Yeah.
So that one's a smaller one. Actually, I think a couple of folks that I went to basic training with ended up there because they had a big C-130 mission there at one point.
There's a lot of good missions out of that place, especially today.
Yep. So ended up in the Panhandle, and the job itself was pretty good. I had one of the NCOs in my shop tell me, he said, pick a piece of equipment and become the expert on it.
Okay.
And he's like, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to know everything about everything, but pick a piece of equipment and become the expert on it. And so that's what I did. And I spent all my time like focusing on learning everything about this one piece of equipment, and it came in handy when we were deployed.
What was the piece of equipment?
That was a TAC one. So it was. I've forgotten. It's been so many years, but I mean, like that was the one thing I was like, okay, yep, I'm good at that. And there were some technical questions that had come up about it, and nobody else knew. And some of the more seasoned NCOs, they were like, well, we don't. Like, I don't know, what's this for? And I'm like, actually, we can use it doing this because it does this other thing. And they're like, oh, really? So we ended up
Did you have a clearance for your job? Did it require clearance?
Yes.
What level?
Secret for that one.
Secret clearance, okay. Yeah.
Yep. So later on, there were other places that required higher clearance, but that, for that initial part was secret clearance.
Yeah. So. Where'd you deploy?
So my first deployment was in Kuwait. So, and that was pre-9/11. So
that was pre-9/11.
Yep, pre-9/11 deployments were.
Is that when the Scuds and all the Scud attacks and stuff happened?
I'm not that old. So this was. Let's see, we deployed.
I deployed with guys in Iraq that have been in the Scud war. Too. So there's. I mean, it just depends the age.
So my first deployment was in 2000.
Okay.
So we were in Kuwait. We had several locations there that we were dealing with. Most of that stuff's unclassified, I'm sure, but so went there.
When in doubt, don't talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, if you know, you know. It's
when in doubt, just don't talk about it.
We got to go to the mall, so that was. But being.
Were you in Kuwait City?
We were. That was Ali Al Salim.
Yeah, so, I remember there.
Yep. So we'd take little trips and go to the mall.
Yeah.
Fascinating thing about that, though, getting back to
it's the difference between the Air Force and the Army. You get to go to the mall on deployments. We didn't do that stuff.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
Yeah. We had to go eat at the other McDonald's over there because that's, I don't know what it is. When you go on deployments, you end up at the places where you have restaurants back in the state, the same restaurants back in the States.
That's an American thing. Like you get on a bus in Paris and you have every American looking for Burger King, McDonald's, and they point that out like, dude, there's a French restaurant right there.
Yeah.
You're like, I want Burger King. Like, wait, what? Okay. So fascinating thing about that was, so we had the American side, the U.S. military side, and then there was also the Kuwaiti side of the base. And there was, a gate separating the two. Now, I could drive on the American side.
But you couldn't drive on the Kuwaiti side.
I couldn't drive on the Kuwaiti side.
Technically in Kuwait,
is that because of being a female?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that specifically pre-9/11 is very, like, anytime that I've spoken to a female vet that went to a Muslim-dominated country, and the restrictions you have, like you can't walk anywhere, you can't go anywhere. This is the place you go. This is what you do. If you go off base, you have to have a man with you. The rules are insane.
We had to be covered from neck to ankle.
Yeah.
And at that time of year, it's warm, and having to wear pants and long sleeves. That was, I mean, you're used to it on base, but then it's like you're going out somewhere and you're like, okay, well, this is cool. But things like the customs, like don't wave with your left hand.
What time of year were you in Kuwait?
We were there
Summer.
August, September time frame.
Did you ever go up to Baghdad or Iraq?
I did.
What did you think was hotter, Baghdad or Kuwait or Iraq? What did it feel like to you? I felt like Kuwait was way worse.
Qatar was the hottest to me. To me, that was the hottest.
I didn't in Qatar. Qatar was terrible.
I
feel like Kuwait's worse because of this. I spent a lot of time in the desert in Kuwait, like actual desert, and to me, the sand and the wind in the summer plus the heat was just misery.
I'm just talking from a tourist getting off a plane there. It's is Dubai, and Qatar. I don't even want to know what the visit felt like.
It's oppressive. I think Kuwait was hotter now that I think about it, because I mean, for the same time frame, because I was in Iraq around the same time frame, time of year. It was like the cold was cold. In Iraq. And you know, I was just like, man, this is really. But
I spent a lot of time over there. I was in there multiple winters, multiple summers, and both are brutal. Both are brutal. Winters are freezing. Even when you get to that place where like you'd have extreme temperature changes during the day versus the night. Like you're at 100 degrees during the day and it's like 50 at night, and you're like freezing. Freezing cold.
It's a tough environment.
Well, the first clue for me was when they started issuing the Gore-Tex. They're like, oh, here's your Gore-Tex for the.
You want that?
And I was like,
I don't need this.
I don't need this.
No, you
and
do.
They're like, oh yeah, you're gonna want it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I do need it. But you know,
I actually kept my Gore-Tex for the longest time, and I finally lost it. I don't know if I got rid of it or if it could be in a trunk somewhere. But that Gore-Tex was good stuff.
I still have it. I mean,
so just for those who don't know, what's that?
It's basically your warm gear.
Gosh, it's just okay.
Yeah, it keeps you
warm.
warm.
So it gets cold.
Yeah.
Okay. And so by the time you hit 2000, how long were you in the military at the time? Pre 9/11.
So pre 9/11. So I was. 3 years in by 9/11, so a little over 3 years.
And is it 2 years? What's service look like? Like
your job.
So So just
depends on how much training you have.
Okay.
So if your job training, it depends on the branch, of course, but it also depends on your job training and how much your commitment is. So for me, I did intel. I had a long training period. I had a longer commitment.
How long was your commitment?
Total, I think, was 4 years.
Okay.
Now, I was looking at air traffic control, which was an even bigger training period. It was like a 14-month training window. I had a 6-year commitment plus the training.
Wow.
So I was like, I don't want to do that one, even though I could have done it outside.
So mine was 4 years. So technically 8 years. So whenever that initial contract, you do 4 years active and then 4 years inactive.
Okay.
They basically at that point they assign you to a base, but there's no
standard across all branches.
Okay.
At least it used to be. So whatever your initial commitment is, it's a minimum 8 years total. There's an inactive period most likely, but that's standard.
Where they could recall.
And inactive is recall at any time, right?
Basically,
I mean, it has to be like
wartime, but
I think maybe Vietnam would have been the last time they actually implemented it. I know guys that got like muster calls, if you will.
Yeah.
I even got some muster calls in that period of time, but I never went. I never went to them. Some people I think would actually go, but if we were to go into World War III and we need people, they go to the IRR first, and then they would go to a draft.
So for mine, once I hit that 3-year period, so while I was deployed to Kuwait, I got orders to South Korea. And I was like, and there was the thing, they said, if you're deployed when you get orders, you can turn down that set.
Really?
Yeah. So you can turn it down. Now, one of my NCOs told me, he said, well, the thing is, if you got picked, that means you're hot for orders. So you can turn it down, and then as soon as you get back to the to the States, you can get the same orders again, and then you can't turn them down.
Yeah.
Or you could get worse orders. So it's like kind of
pick your poison.
Pick your poison.
South Korea is a nice place. Not a bad place to be.
Well, it depends on where you were going. I had orders to Yongsan, which is right there in Seoul.
Oh, okay.
And so everybody, they oohed and awed. They're like, "Ooh, you got the good one, man. You should take that." And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, people were thrilled about going to Korea for whatever reason.
Some of the places weren't the greatest, but I mean, being there in Seoul was not bad. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll take it. Cool, I'll take it. So I took the orders, and then I started doing all the out processing and everything. I arrived in Seoul, South Korea on 9/11. So
legit on 9/11.
Legit.
Wow.
Well, so it was 9/11 in Seoul, South Korea. It was still the night of the 10th.
Yeah.
So I get there. My sponsor, which is the person, kind of like your handler when you get in country. So my sponsor told me, he's like, when you get there, he said, they're going to run you through this little cattle call. Do not get in the car with anybody. Don't get on a bus. I will come get you. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm sitting there waiting. He shows up. We drive so when we arrived at Osan, which is maybe an hour away from Yongsan. So I get there. He drives me back. He's like, "Here's your room. Here, I'm gonna let you get unpacked, get settled. We'll see you tomorrow," kind of thing. And I'm like, "All right, cool." So I'm in my room. I have nothing but that green duffel bag full of everything, and I'd been traveling from Raleigh, North Carolina, all the way through SeaTac, which is Seattle, Tacoma, all the way to Yongsan, South Korea. I was beat.
That's like 36 hours of traveling.
I don't.
Yeah, most military people can tell you how to travel the world.
Yeah, that's a crazy trip.
That was awful. So I was just like, okay, I am beat. I'm just going to unpack a couple of things. My roommate said, "Hey, you're welcome to take whatever's in the kitchen. Get yourself a snack. Go to bed. We'll see you tomorrow." I wake up to somebody beating on the door. So in the dorms that we had there, because we had dorms.
Yeah.
Army lived in barracks. Okay. So our little dorm room.
I'm agreeing because it's true.
It's true. So you go in the front door and you're in this like little kitchenette. You have a shared bathroom, and then you have 2 separate bedrooms that lock.
Yeah.
So you have like your own private bedroom kind of thing.
What?
I was waiting on the punch for that.
Well, I'm not going to beat you up too much on the podcast.
Okay.
I'll spare you.
All right. I got to see you again tomorrow.
Yeah, right. I'll just tell you the best week I ever had in the Army was on an Air Force base.
Yeah.
Let's leave it there.
Yeah. Well, the best dental I ever had was Army, which...
That's weird.
That is weird.
Yeah.
So, there's beating on the door. I'm like, okay, what the hell? And this guy I'd never seen before says, "Are you watching TV?" And I'm like, "No."
No, I've been sleeping because I'm jet lagged.
I don't have
that should be like 3 o'clock in the morning, right?
Well, for there,
it's about a 12-hour difference.
Probably.
Yeah, so it happened about 3, it was about 3, 4 weeks, about 2.
I think the 2 hours were hit at like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning.
9 in the morning.
Yeah, so it'll be been late at night.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't know. So he says, "Well, come here." And so we go to the day room, which is kind of like it's a place with TV and a bigger kitchen and where people can like chill. So we go there.
More Air Force benefits.
More Air Force stuff. Yeah.
You keep looking at me as if you have some guilt left over from the Air Force days and how good you had it versus the Army. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I did spend a lot of time around the Army with the Army, and every time
you got paid extra for having a lower standard of quality of life, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
A little bit there. So he turns on the TV and he's like, "Watch." And, and I'm thinking, now I just arrived in Korea and everything I heard was it was party town, party central. Like, you're going to do nothing but
have a good time.
Have a good time, drink, and get a lot of custom clothes made. Like that was what I'd been told. Yeah. So I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, this must be where the party happens. Like, I'm like, all right. So he turns on the TV and I'm watching what's happening in New York. And I see that we watched the second plane hit right at that point.
Yeah.
And I was like, it felt like that scene from one of those scenes from Independence Day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you guys are joking with me. Like, this is a movie.
I'm tired. I'm still
let me stop you there. I'm going to take a quick break. Okay. And then I've got very specific questions about how things change from that point on.
All right. Cool.
You showed my potty beforehand.
I did.
He did.
I drank like 2 gallons of water.
Dude, I feel like at night I pee 45 times.
But yeah, we had so at Fort Gordon, our rooms we were like 4 to a room, and the Army was usually like 8 to the same size room. So it was like
Army. I was at Bragg, Horton Bragg, and was it Pope? You remember Pope?
No, Pope is what they called it.
They shut that down though. The Army ended up buying it, if I'm not mistaken.
Possibly.
But I remember going to that gym and just seeing how they lived over there. Mm-hmm. It was, and that was basically an extension of Bragg, and it was still way nicer. Oh, yeah. It was crazy how much of a difference it was. It was just like insane.
Yeah. It was like you could feel it when you went from Pope to Bragg. You're like, oh. That thing that they say now, they're like, "Oh, I see you got roaches."
What's that?
So they're like, "Oh, I see you got roaches." By the time you get over to the Bragg side of the base, you're like,
feel better?
Yeah, I do.
That's good.
I'm empty. Okay, so I've always had an interest base on, and that's why I asked you specifically if you were pre 9/11, because the impact of 9/11, right? For me, I was in South Africa. I remember the time. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was driving the car. Radio was on. They stopped everything.
See, when I just talked about this, I think it was last night or the night before, everyone in our era remembers exactly where you were at, what you were doing. And it's like our Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. Now note, we're in Africa.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
So
crazy.
this everything stopped. What the radio station was listening to, big announcement. The USA's been attacked. Planes hit the World Trade Center buildings. The next minute, everybody's watching a TV. For the next 2 days, everybody's trying to figure out, oh my God, is the world ending? What's happening?
Yeah.
Now, this is a foreigner. I'm living in South Africa, and that was the impact of me. Now,
interesting.
you're in the military, right? You're deployed. They pull you in front of this. Is what goes through your head when you see this on TV, right? Knowing that you are in that military. And you see this happen, what was going through your head, and what were the feelings that were going through? Because it must have been insane.
Well, like I said, I felt like at first like it was a big prank. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is not
That
real.
can't be real.
This can't be real. Like the U.S. would never be attacked. Like that's no. So there was a lot of disbelief at the time, and I was just like, okay. So we had a phone in that day room also. So I tried to call home. Of course, lines are down. You're not calling anybody. And so
They shut the base phones down, right?
I think because of everything that was happening, like trying to get a line back to the States.
Gotcha.
It was just overbearing. Everyone's on the phone. Everyone's on communication.
And so at this point, it dawned on me, like I hadn't called my family to let them know that I had even arrived in Korea.
Yeah.
Because by the time when I got there, it was time difference and everything. I was like, oh, I'll call them tomorrow when I'm like awake and whatever. So the assumption was, well, surely they know I got here, but I don't really know. So, I was like, I need to call them and just let them know, hey, I'm here, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like, everything's fine, at least for now. Couldn't get through, and I just gave up, and I was like, okay, I'll go to bed. And I went to sleep, and the next morning, so this was my first day there,
Yeah.
right? So the next thing that happened, so all these things were happening overnight. They shut down the base. So
Yeah.
people couldn't get on base, people couldn't get off base,
Okay.
anything like that. Well, my sponsor lived off base.
So you're not even your sponsor get on base.
Right. So
Wow.
he's off base. He can't get on base to tell them that I'm there. My roommate gets up, she goes on, she probably didn't even think about me being in the next room. She's like, oh, she's got a plan, it's fine. So everybody goes to work as normal. I wake up after like the best sleep of my life because
It is the best sleep after that.
I had no alarm clock. I was just like, oh man. I open the door, I go outside, and I see directly across from me the Korean Army, the Rock Army. I see one of their soldiers out there putting sea wire around their building. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is happening? And I'm looking around, I don't see a soul, like nobody, just me and that guy. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, okay, shit got real. Like something happened. And then someone from the squadron had come down to pick up some stuff from the dorm, and she saw me standing outside, and she's like, oh, you're our new person. I was like, yeah. Hi, what's happening? And she's like, oh, just get in, I'll take you to the squadron. So I get in, and I'm like, okay, I mean, she could have been anybody, but at that time I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. So we get there, and then we start kind of piecing together what happened.
Yeah.
So from that point, I finally got a line back home and was able to call somebody and say, hey, I'm here, everything's fine. But being overseas, for me, I felt really detached.
Yeah.
Just like it was literally something I saw on TV, and feeling that, okay, something's happening, but like we're a world away from it.
Yeah.
Our base was shut down for a while just because North Korea had been named one of the axes of evil. Yeah. So
purely because of the location, it was a little bit worse.
Right. And there was a lot of and this is going to sound horrible, but at the time being a foreigner, I didn't know the difference between North Korean folks and South Korean folks.
Yeah, which is fair.
I was like, I don't know. They all look the same. They all speak in a language that I don't know. Like, how do I know if they are coming to kill me? I don't know. So that was a lot of the stress that I felt just that whole year of just like, okay, stick with the people that that I know. Yeah. Stick with the people that are U.S. military, and just don't separate yourself from anybody.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much how 9/11 went for me, and then I got home. I returned to the States and on 9/11, 2002. And I remember riding back from the airport, and it was like, we're going to stop and observe a moment of silence on the 1-year anniversary of 9/11. And the radio went silent. And it was like, the road was empty.
Yeah.
And I just remember sitting there being like, oh shit, like this is real, like this really happened. This really happened here. And you see the American flags on the overpasses and stuff like that. And I was like, okay. And so it felt like I'd been in a coma for a year almost, like trying to piece together what actually happened during that time.
Because you also, like you say, you're detached from it. Like you see the military response to it, which is fair, right? So every U.S. military and every foreign military on Earth, within 10 minutes of that happening, is on high alert because they don't know what's next, right? So that's understandable. And then as that happens, the U.S. military base is now on high alert for an extended period of time.
Right.
And you're detached because you're in a foreign country. You're not, you can't really engage with anyone. Now you land at home, and now that's probably the first time you actually got the impact of what happened. Right.
And feeling that and just kind of being like, okay, like this is the world we're in now. Okay, so what happens now? It took a little bit. It took a little bit to kind of figure it out, because when we were in South Korea, of course, we were considered, it was not deployed, but we were, the manning there was a 1-for-1 swap. So it wasn't like we were mobilizing or anything like that. We were there.
Yeah. You had a mission already.
Right.
Yeah, Korea's had an very long, since the Korean War mission.
Yeah.
And what they're directly supporting and how they go about it. And it's nothing to do with anything else in the world. It's literally about North Korea.
I mean, South Korea is a strategic point for Asia, for the entire Asia. And little bit known, South Korea is American, North Korea is Chinese or Russian. It's a communist country, it's communist versus it's the split of Korea, which is a very deep history. But to your point is, to you, it's just a foreign country. It doesn't matter which one you're in. I mean, obviously, you want to be North Korea, but it doesn't matter which one you're in.
I guess what I'm trying to say to you is, knowing that mission set there, it's solely focused on North Korea.
Yeah.
So you would be detached, even though, like, there's other places around the world where we have a U.S.-based mission that's strategic for what's going on. All missions are different based on the commands of the world. But South Korea is only about North Korea.
That's the danger. It's the danger that they pose, right?
It's they're nuclear. They're always doing exercises. They're doing things, and we're strategic there with the South Koreans to help them be in a position to defend themselves if needed. So your mission at that time is, and through today, is nowhere else in the world. So I can understand why you would be that much detached.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because you want to know what's going on at home, but you're not focused on that.
Right.
Because of your mission.
Right.
So does your mindset change? So again, as I said before, is up until 9/11, the last major war that the United States has was the Vietnam War, right? The last major, yes, there was in the Middle East, but it wasn't at the same levels. This happens. Does it change your mindset being in the military, and like, does your focus set change? You go, you know what, now I was locked in and this was kind of a job I'm doing and I'm a focus, but now you go, well, now I'm in. Now I'm 100. Now there's nothing else but this. Does your mindset change, or was it just the hours as usual? Did everything continue as usual, or did you kind of adapt with that?
I think a lot of it. I think I mostly adapted with it, and it didn't so much feel like, oh man, like we're doing this, like we're gonna go. It was more like, well, this is what we're doing today. All right, and you just kind of, I don't know if that's a coping mechanism or what, but
no, it has to be. That's and I get it completely.
It's like, just focus on what's in front of you.
You kind of do the job, right? Just get the job done.
You know what I think you were to put too. So like, you probably lived this, where I've been asked in my deployments, were you afraid? Well, probably, but I didn't think about it ever.
Literally why PTSD exists.
Right.
You can't think about it right there.
Well,
it'll tear you apart. You'll just be like,
you can't focus on it. You can't dwell on it. Sure, there's intense moments. Sure, there's some fear that's provoked, but you can't dwell on that. Like, you have to move forward, and you don't focus on those things. So
I'd like to use that to jump into the next section I want to talk about. So as a woman in the military, and you're in the Air Force, the coping mechanisms, and again, it depends on your deployment. So you were never in any active combat zone?
I was in Iraq, but I was never outside the wire like that.
Okay, so you were
still being in an active,
but you were still in an
zone.
Active combat zone, right? So you heard bombs going off. There was always a threat of being shot. You really didn't. You're not safe at any point.
Right now.
Just because you were on the inside the wire always, you were still exposed to elements, and I knew plenty of people that were killed inside the wire. There were complex attacks.
You've shared that a couple of times.
Basis.
Basically, you're safe, but you're not safe.
You're not safe.
Let's be honest, right? It's an active combat zone. So, as a woman in this situation, right? So, men develop PTSD, right? And I feel just based on how you answered a lot of the questions is you've developed a very strong mode to just kind of focus on what I have to do. Don't put yourself in anything external, right? However, going through that, right, your coping mechanism, have you found that those coping mechanisms within that you've learned there, have they helped you outside the military? And this is over and beyond the problems that you come with. We know that there's PTSD. We know that there's all these problems that come with it. However, hard times and difficult times create a iron forge, which allows you to deal with things in life that other people may seem to be insurmountable, right? So, someone cuts their finger and the world's ending, you cut a finger off and you go, well, let's go stitch it back up. You understand what I'm talking about? How has that helped you now outside of the military? And we'll go into how you got there, but have you found that that's actually been a benefit to you outside the military?
I think so. Now, kind of going into the history of being an attorney, when I was working in family law, at first it was kind of like, okay, let's just listen. I get it. You're going through a thing, but we got to knuckle down and we got to just get through the paperwork and get to the end of this. Just leave the frilly shit to the side. Just listen. It's pure facts at this point. This and this and this. I found as distance from the military happened, I started kind of feeling things, and then I started kind of identifying with my client, and then I would be like, oh hell no, they did.
Would you say you struggled with empathy post-military?
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's most veterans.
I still do, and I think that's why where I'm at now with what I do, I think that there's a little bit of empathy that's there, but I think a lot of it. I've resorted to just dark humor.
Yeah, well, you get used. You hate to say this, but you get used to death. You get used to high risk situations. You get used to difficult situations. Yeah. You're conditioned for it.
It changes the way you see the world. I think Joe Rogan had an episode years ago, and he was talking about how he perceived injuries, because he sits on the side of a cage,
he sees them,
and people are getting, there's blood flying all over the place, and it's nothing. And then he remembers the one time his wife literally cut her finger, and she was freaked out, and he's like, that's nothing. And she's like, what do you mean? I've just cut my finger, I might need stitches. And he realized how disconnected he was from how she felt about what happened to her because of what he does for a living, which is no different to what you experience within the military.
Right.
You have to be that tough person who kind of just, feelings aside, I've got to get the job done, I don't have time for this. But now you met your husband in the military, correct?
But really quick on that point, that wreaks havoc in personal relationships.
Yeah, that's
when you don't have empathy, when you struggle to connect with the empathy aspect of things, it wreaks havoc on personal relationships.
And that's really where I want to dive in next is, so you make your way through, and how many years did you serve all in total?
16 and a half total.
Right, so you did 16 years in the military. So a big portion of your life was within the military complex, right?
Right.
So how long were you in the military before you left when you met your current spouse?
I had been in 13 years, I think.
Okay.
So the bulk of my career, so we pretty much met at the very end of that.
Gotcha.
Now, like every military person, not every, a lot of military folks, starter marriages happen. So had already gotten the starter marriage out of the way. So,
the BAH marriage. Yeah. Get married so I can get some extra housing allowance.
The extra housing, the preferred duty station, all that stuff. So, so I'd gotten that out of the way. But we met toward the end of both of our careers, and there was a lot there. As far as you mentioned empathy and everything like that, for the two of us, and I think a lot of times that's how either military relationships work or they don't work, because you're either on the same playing field, or if there's a mismatch or a need that's not being met, that's where you go, okay, I can't be with a military person because they're not filling my cup. They're not doing the things that I need them to do.
They don't quite get it.
But there's also, I don't want to call it a trauma bond, but there is almost like a military trauma bond.
No, I
believe that, yeah.
That,
What did Tommy do in the military?
He was a firefighter.
He's carried that all the way through, yeah.
Bless his heart. So...
And he retired also, right?
He retired also. Yep.
Yeah.
So he has a different take on things. His whole aspect on being a firefighter is, I've wanted to do one job since I was little. I joined the military to do that job, and now that I am out of the military, I only know how to put the wet stuff on the red stuff. And so firefighting is just what comes naturally. So here I am.
Which is honestly good for him. I mean, I have no problem with that. If you know what you want to do and you go for it aggressively, I'm all for it.
But is that what he's always? My knowledge of, I know a couple firefighters that have had to become first responders in order to go do what they wanted to do, meaning they were ambulance and dealing with stuff. Yeah.
So the military firefighter aspect of it it's different depending on where you're stationed. So in some aspects, at least what I was able to gather from it. So sometimes they have rescues attached to that people work on, like active military members are working on, or they have a contract company that does the ambulance portion. So I don't know the rhyme or reason behind all of that. I know at one point he was on a rescue, and at one point he was on a fire truck. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. But for Hillsborough, for where he is at Hillsborough County, they have. So he started out on the firefighter side, so EMT, firefighter, and then moved over to paramedic, where now he's on the rescue.
Okay. So. And did he deploy in the military?
He did.
Yeah, multiple deployments.
Multiple deployments, yes.
Did you guys deploy together?
No,
or never deployed together.
No, I did deploy with my ex, and that was interesting. Because we were at different bases. Yeah. So he and I were married. It was military marriages. He was in a different branch of service, but we never really spent a lot of time together.
Yeah. But like with you and Tommy, you guys were together while one was gone. Like he would be out on a deployment.
No,
you never had that.
No, the only thing when we got together, the only time that we were apart from each other, base wise, was when we were at a training, a school, or anything like that.
Okay, so you were lucky enough to be able to spend a lot of time together, which I think is important. Again, the minute you leave, life kind of changes, which we're gonna help.
Well, the reason I was asking those questions is I was honestly curious if you had any experience around. I know whenever my last deployment was with Sam. I went to Afghanistan, came back, and I was a totally different person from where I was before I came back. And so going through that, like your loved ones see you as a person before you leave,
right?
And then you go through what you go through. Right? They know nothing different because I never really shared a lot of what was happening.
How long was that deployment?
The Afghanistan one, I think, was 6 months, maybe 7.
What can happen in 6 months?
But the thing is, that was a short one for me. Yeah, believe it or not, that was a short.
No, I believe you. But it just like even if you talk about 3 months, 3 months in an extreme situation, different changes away from family. Like you come back and you can be a completely different person.
Afghanistan, for whatever reason, for me, Afghanistan brought everything to the surface. So I did 2 years in Iraq. Yeah, I did my first one was in 06, and then I went 07 and 8. I was gone all of 08, so basically a good chunk of 07 plus 08. Yeah. Then I came back, went back out like 10 months later to Afghanistan from December to May of... December of 09 to May, or end of May 06. No, 2010. Throw my dates off here. Anyway.
It all runs together after a while.
Yeah, it was like 5 straight years of every year I was deployed a portion of the year, right? So... When I came back from Afghanistan, though, that was the first time I was with... So I met Sam middle of my Iraq deployment, but it wasn't quite... Like it was kind of unofficially official, if that makes sense. And then I came back, we spent time together. Then I go out to Afghanistan together. And when I came back, like, it was very difficult coming back in a relationship.
Now, I've got a question for both of you, right? So you have this military career, right? And you deployed constantly. Now, when you did your last deployment, did you know this was your last deployment? Were you aware of this? When do you become aware of that?
That it was my last one?
Yeah. So you said Afghanistan was your last deployment. When was the point that you knew it was your last deployment?
When I left to go to the private sector.
Okay, so that's when you put the resignation in. And in your mind, did you plan this?
I mean, I did what I had to do. So I was working because I was, I didn't know where else I could go. I had the clearance. I was making good enough money that I was making ends meet for our family. Politically speaking, especially in the intel, I don't know if his communications was like this, but like depending on who the administration was, which way they leaned, that determined whether there was contract fundings, things like that, like all these different things that they would pump money into. And I didn't like the idea. Like what I did in Intel was just, I mean, I knew guys deploying 12, 14, 18 times, like just constantly going, just always out. And I just didn't want that. And I had gotten lucky and missed, I think, 3 deployments. I had one that I actually wanted to go on. I was at by name selection for the specific deployment. I wanted it. They told me our command said no because they didn't like by name appointments.
Yeah.
So I was told no to that one, and then I got lucky with 2 others where someone else volunteered to go before me so that I didn't have to go. And I just knew my number was coming at some point.
So you were aware you're running to the end of your contract. Yeah. And for you was the same.
It's not even the end of my contract.
No. When I say contract, in your mind, I'm done. Coming. Yeah, I'm getting to the end of this career. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, I'm saying I knew I was tired of that career path. Yeah. I knew I needed something different. It was either I moved to DC and get into the Beltway world, which I did not want anything to do with.
Did not.
Because the Beltway world, you didn't have to deploy as much because it was the commands that deployed. So it was either that or I get out of it altogether. And then if I stayed in it where I was at, there was deployments coming.
Okay.
And I did not want to deploy again because it had ran its course on me. The other problem that I had is I lied about all my mental health afterwards because I had a top secret clearance and I had compartments that I was read into and programs. I never told the truth that I actually had a problem.
So let me rephrase the question. At which point, before or during your last deployment, did you know it's your last deployment? That you made the decision?
I did. Literally, when I resigned from the intel world is when I knew I was done.
Okay, so it was like it was at the end, and that's when you made the decision?
Literally at the end when I resigned because I got offered a job to get out.
Okay.
Like that's when I knew that I was officially not deploying anymore.
Gotcha. And for you, Angela, when in your mind you know this is toward the end?
I don't think I did.
Same thing.
It was one of those where I didn't join the military to deploy, but once I started deploying, I was like, oh man, like this is awesome. Like this is so cool. Like, and in a twisted kind of way, it was like I like doing it. And it was, you go someplace, you're doing a special mission or certain.
You got to do your job.
You have to really do your job. And it wasn't just, in the rear with the gear training and everything.
And it meant something. It really meant something.
Doing something. I mean, you may not see the end result, but you knew that, okay,
you were contributing.
This is doing something. And so, in my first marriage, that was one of the things that we were, different branches of service, and we realized early enough on that we weren't, in order for us to take care of our own careers and do the things, it was not feasible for us to be together just because locations, job opportunities.
It's really hard to have cross-branch marriages.
It is. And it was like kind of a, let's save ourselves, while we're still
able to, and, we'll call it a day. And, for that, it was, before we had our daughter, it was, deployment after, if a deployment came up, hey, you want to go? Sure. And a lot of times it was high-fiving in the door. It was like, hey, I'm out, you're in. All right, cool. I'll see you later. So did you get pregnant with your daughter while you were still in the military, or were you out already?
I was in the military.
So what's that like?
Oh, man. Well, there wasn't, at that point, so this was 2005. I'd come back from Iraq and found out I was pregnant with her, and there wasn't a whole lot in occupational therapy or I think occupational something, where they didn't really know what to do with pregnant people.
Yeah, that's kind of one question. Like does the CO come to you and go, hey, how dare you? That kind of thing is kind of.
I have an experience with this. I had a girl. I was in charge of I think 8 or 10 people at this time. I don't remember. And she comes to me and she's like, "Hey, I'm pregnant." And I immediately went in to solve the problem mode. I didn't even think to say congratulations or anything. And then I went, wait, congratulations. Like, it's a good thing, right? She's like, and I'm like, oh, well, how do you want me to handle this? Like, I can be happy for you, whatever.
What do I do with my hands?
So it ended up, like, she was actually, I believe she's still with the same guy, so it ended up being a good story. But, you know, we took her into the CO office, commanding officer, and go into paperwork mode.
Okay.
Because, like,
What else do you do?
it's men dealing with a pregnant female in the military.
that's kind of why I'm asking, because it
Your
seems like
mind goes, like, the man's brain goes to, well, now you're not mission capable anymore.
Right.
Yeah, now I'm going to change everything up.
And for us, it kind of feels like Salem witch trials. Witch!
Yeah.
Because then you're like, oh,
Literally.
wait, what? Oh, uh-oh.
Because your entire position within the military
But I'll
literally
say,
changes.
I don't know how the Air Force was, but the Army, girls got pregnant on purpose sometimes to get out, because they could get out.
Well, get out of deployments, and we did see that.
They got out of the military.
Well,
Got out of deployments, but also got out of the military.
There were some that could, and there's actually a story there. So at that point, I was kind of like, they didn't really know what to do with me. It wasn't occupational therapy. It was some kind of occupational something where they go, oh, this is your job, and now you're pregnant. Now you're on this profile. So they're like, in the workplace, don't trip over cords and don't bump desks too hard. And I was like, okay, well, that's kind of random because, okay, I mean, I won't, but like, what's going to happen? Like, am I going to blow up? Like, what happens there? Then there's all the things like, don't ride horses and don't do this. And I'm like, I don't even own a horse. So, okay, all right, I guess I won't ride a horse. I never thought about being a horseback rider, but until now. So, they're just
really ill-equipped.
Very ill-equipped.
That sounds super ill-equipped.
So to kind of go back into this. So from the moment that I went into basic training, and I imagine it was this way for a long time. Even the uniforms we wore, and if you, you were post 9/11. Did you have BDUs or were you, okay? So
briefly, but yeah, they switched from BDUs to ACUs.
The ACUs,
I think it was called.
So with BDUs, they had no female version, and I don't know if you've ever worn women's clothes.
I try not to.
You try not to.
I try very hard.
Colleen gets really upset about it. So on the BDU pants, the buttons are backwards from the way women would normally. Okay, so I've been dressing like a man for all this time, right? Yeah. So the buttons go backwards. The buttons, everything. So it wasn't until
I never knew that until just now.
So on the women's uniforms, once the Air Force went to the ABU, they actually had a women's uniform. So it was
slightly different.
So I think maybe sometime in there was a women's component to it, but for the longest I was wearing dudes' clothes. And full disclosure, they're way more comfortable. They're not so like on the waist and all that.
Tight.
Yeah, and if you got thighs and a butt, just wear the dudes' clothes. They're much roomier. So fast forward to this point where I'm pregnant and I'm like, okay, well, like what now? So I see all these women, they're like, oh, you get the maternity clothes, you get all this. And I'm like, no, I ain't doing that. So I worked out, pretty much 32 weeks. I was a PTL, the training leader for PE, for PT. But I did that all the way up till like 32 weeks pregnant. So I was out there, running with everybody, doing, all this stuff.
So they still kept you active within certain tasks?
Within reason.
Within reason.
There were things like I couldn't wear chem gear, but we don't really wear chem gear in the States unless you're in exercise mode. Like I couldn't stand more than so many hours at a time, and it was just kind of silly stuff like that. I say silly stuff,
but at least it was something.
Well, but the thing is, it was like it was a one size fits all.
Yeah.
So they didn't take into effect or account like what you do normally.
Yeah.
And we've learned since then that if you work out, it's okay to keep working out. It's okay to keep doing the things you were doing.
Women are pretty functional right up until birth, so
right. So the only thing that I had trouble with was in my flight. So being in my career field, I was in a male dominant career field for most of my career. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I had happen was I had a shop chief at that time, and he didn't understand. And so I go to my doctor's appointments. He's like, why do you have all these doctor's appointments? And I'm like, I don't know. They tell me I have to go. I go. They give me an appointment slip. I go again. I don't know. And after a certain point in pregnancy, you go more often. Mm-hmm. Like you're there all the time. And he thought I was malingering. I was making it up. I, was off goofing off, getting my nails done or something. I don't know what he thought. But he gave me so much crap about just my routine OBGYN appointments.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I got to go. And so that put a lot on me, just kind of being like, okay,
pressure.
Like, I don't know how to prove that I'm just doing what I'm told.
Yeah.
So at this point, so this was in North Carolina, they didn't have a hospital on base that could accommodate what was happening. So they sent me off base to a civilian provider. So I was seeing this civilian doctor, and I went in there one day, and he said, your blood pressure is high. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not eating things that I'm not supposed to. I'm doing everything. Like, I don't know. My blood pressure's high. And he said, and your ankles are swelling. So I want you to not wear your combat boots, if you can. So I would go and do PT with everybody, and then come in, and I'm like kind of hanging around, like not wanting to change into my BDUs and put my boots on because my ankles had already started swelling and everything. And so I had asked my shop chief, I said, hey, is it okay if I wear my tennis shoes with my BDU, just because my ankles swell? Or can I put my feet up on a little stool or something just to kind of keep the swelling down? I don't know what's happening. I'm swelling. I've never had a baby before. I don't know why. And he lit into me, and he was just like, Sergeant, he goes, there's no way I'm going to let you put your feet up on the desk just because you're pregnant. And I'm like, I didn't say on the desk. I just said my ankles are swelling. Like, okay, fine, I won't. And so I just would try to cinch them down and hope for the best.
Wow.
And so I was like, all right. And then this went on for another 4 weeks. And so at this point, I'm 36 weeks pregnant. I still had not given in to maternity clothes. At this point, I had switched over. I was wearing my now ex-husband. I was wearing my husband's work pants, because the belly was getting a little bigger. So I just went to a bigger man's uniform. I was just like, it's okay. Hold on, little buddy. So this time I go back to the doctor, and they rotated. So there were 3 doctors in this practice, and the doctors they start rotating you around once you get to a certain point because they don't know who's going to be on call when you go in labor. Mm-hmm. So I had the one they called the mean doctor. So he was the one that when they weighed you in, that was the first thing they did when you get to the appointment. They weigh you in. They want to know how much weight you've gained since your last appointment, which is offensive anyway. Okay, so I hate scales. So, but if you had gained too much weight during that time, he would circle your weight in red on the chart and then lecture you about you're not really eating for 2. And so I was terrified of this doctor. So when I knew I was going to see him, I was like, I'm going to go see him at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm only going to have water when I go in there, and I'm going to wear something really light and airy so that I don't tip the scales, because it was bad. So I go in there, and everything's. He never circled my weight. He was super nice. He was the one that actually ended up delivering my daughter, which that was a great doctor. So, but at this particular point, he said, you're still swelling, your blood pressure is really elevated, like, what's happening with you? And before I knew it, I burst into tears, and I was like, my ankles are so swollen, and I've been running, and I can't do this, and I can't do that. And my shop chief won't let me do this, and I just want to put my shoes on, and I don't want to, I can't bend over and tie my boots, and so it's all the things, right? And he took one look at me, and he goes, well, that's enough of that. And he wrote me basically a note that put me on bed rest for the next 4 weeks.
Wow.
He's like, okay, I'll play his game. He goes, we're just going to put you on bed rest.
Oh, you were swelling because you were stressing out as well. Like, just pure stress.
I had pitting edema in my ankles. It was like,
that's rough.
Where my brain goes to at that story is, I think, I don't think this is just military specific, and I think some of the reason we've, and not to get into politics, but some of the reasons we've gone into this place of wokeness in the world is because we don't use our logical brains. We just follow a rule book. Mm-hmm. And that's an example of where here's somebody that's pregnant, you're a man, following a rule book, and not using your logical brain to look at you and say, well, why are you on your feet? Like, whether you've had kids or not, you should be able to understand a little bit of, there's a human element of this, not just, you should be in the right place, right uniform, right time, always. You should always be a good, what do they call those? The Air Force's airmen? Is that what it is? Always have to be a good airman or airwoman, whatever you guys were. But, that to me is a problem with a lot of stuff. Like, rules are guidelines. Handbooks are guidelines.
Right.
They're not meant to be concrete. right? So we have to use logic and judgment around these things, and I think that's where people get messed up in today's society. Is like, and I don't know if the military's getting better about this stuff, but like they bend the rules to a certain degree and say, "Oh, we're going to be accepting and inclusive of everybody," and they went too far. You know, so you have to have standards,
Right.
but you have to use common sense with stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people just get, a little bit misconstrued on what they should do.
It's a good point, but I think the experience with that is because military is male dominated, and from a military standpoint is my personal opinion is I agree that on the combat zone, right, having a woman on the combat zone can be detrimental to the actual. I'm talking about actually in combat, right? So you're sitting on a shoot, it can be, right?
Right.
There's place for, and there always has been place for women in the military. However, can you imagine just you worked with a lot of men in the military, right? Is a lot of guys who go into that have this, and men do it generally outside the military. It's not as if it's a military thing. It's well, you're pregnant, we shouldn't feel sorry for you, right? Why'd you join the military if you're going to get pregnant? But in the same breath, you did a very important job in the military. Right, and you're a human being.
You need females in the military.
There's definitely a point for it, but you're correct. I think the problem is over logic. I think as you said is there was no correction, and then there was this massive overcorrection. Right, and now it's kind of shifting the other way, instead of just, as you say, just applying empathy and logic.
Yeah, I mean, I've said for a long time, like in the military, you have combat operations and you have support. So you have basically combat operations and everybody else that supports them. And every branch has that, right? Yeah. Every branch has that. And so you need the roles to support those that are out in the fight. And I think there are some, like I think fighter pilots, for example, females make great fighter pilots because their attention to detail. They're smaller in stature and size, so they fit into the cockpits better. There's a lot of advantages to them being in that type of combat role, right? But you're in an individual spot. That's a lot different type of combat than infantry.
I think physical combat. I think physical where it's your body.
Agreed. I'm just saying, but like infantry, right? There's we're one of the last countries in the world that protect our females. Okay, so
exactly.
There's an endearing factor.
There is.
Let's look at the three of us. If we're all in a combat role, we're going to always protect her.
Yeah.
Innately, we're always going to protect her.
And in the same breath, if one of us get injured, your nurturing status is going to be the one taking care of us.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, I can fix this, and then and then now what have we done?
Yeah.
So,
and then also, like, if you think about Ranger School, like when they're in the swamps, there's also like females have internal plumbing. Males have external plumbing. There's higher risk for females to go out into a swamp and deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, to me, like, this is also an aspect of it. Like, I get there's women out there that want to do it, but why would you want to? Like, if you don't have to, why would you want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to, some people are born with that, or they, it's developed in them that desire to want to serve and, do things and, do hard things, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's for the people that, have that calling and they feel like they want to do it, then, absolutely. But it comes with risks.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so,
and again, if it's the same as the Navy SEAL exam. There's no woman who's actually passed it because the standard is so high. I'm sure there's going to be a woman, maybe Brock Lesnar's daughter will do it, that's going to go and that's just on a different level, right? That'll go in and pass it. And let's be honest, I think 99.9999% of men won't go through it, right? So it's not as if all men can do this, but there will always be that exception to the rule, which has always been with women, right? That'll stand out and just prove that they can do it.
Right.
But from the standard standpoint, in the bigger scheme of things, is I agree with you. Like everything you said to me in regards to how they ran your pregnancy was like, okay, well, you can see this person's under stress. That's obviously stress induced. Like, just send them back to the doctor. Go, listen, just check everything and make sure you're okay. But your first reaction is go, oh, I'm not gonna treat you any different because you're pregnant. Well, you should.
Right.
Like,
I do think like at that particular time, you still had some of the old school military still running things,
and he was,
and they weren't very sensitive or aware to anything.
I think there's a lot of change that's coming out.
That's a generational issue in my eyes.
That makes sense.
And so now a lot of this, like Sam was reading something to me the other day about how the 80s babies have fixed a lot of shit. Especially like one of the things they fixed is mental health for veterans, because I think that a lot of people have come back with like a lot of issues, and they don't want to live that way.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to be better.
I didn't want to live that way. That's why this podcast exists, because we don't want to live this way.
100%.
You know?
So let's take a deviation. So when did you actually start studying to be an attorney?
So that was after I retired from the military.
So now I'm getting out of the military, and as you and Kevin, so I've got two points of view from here. I didn't really know I wanted to leave until the opportunity came up to leave. In your particular case, you got a job. What was your reason?
At that point, there were some changes that were happening in the military with structure and kind of how things were going, how people were rated in the military or on the Air Force side.
What year did you retire?
Retired in 2014.
Yeah, that's when they started shifting PT standards and offering early retirements and things like that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they went through, I think in maybe 11 or 12, something like that. They went through, Air Force had TARA, which is the Temporary Early Retirement Authority. They were allowing folks in a certain window. They said, here you can get out. So I was like, oh man, like I'm just outside that window. Man, if they ever offered that again, I'm going to take it. So it came back. And it was in 13. They said, if you're between like 15 and 19 years, you apply, and if your career field can spare it, then you can retire. So it was, I think I don't remember when the application went live. For some reason, I think it was, like sometime in January of 14. Went in like at midnight. The moment it opened up,
You were in there.
My husband and I were both in there.
Okay, so this was a joint decision. You're like both like we were going to take this.
We were like, listen, our options are we're both gonna apply, with the hope that we both get approved.
Yeah.
And if only one of us gets approved, then we'll figure that out when we get there.
Okay.
And so I got approved before he did, and so I was like, at this point, there's a phrase in the military called FIGMO. And it stands for fuck it, got my orders. So I had my retirement was approved, and I'm like, FIGMO, I didn't give a shit about anything at that point.
Good to go.
I was like, all right. Then the panic set in. I was like, what am I going to do now? Oh, crap. Like, I did the one thing, now what happens? So while I was in the military, and one thing that the Air Force does really well is they offer lots of opportunity for education. So I had, they were paying 100% tuition assistance through that point. So through the military, I received 2 like community or like associate's degrees. So it's like community college of the Air Force. So I received 2 associate's degrees. And then I received my bachelor's. My bachelor's is in Homeland Security. And I focused a little bit more on terrorism studies because that was what was interesting to me.
Yeah.
So got my bachelor's knocked out, did a bunch of other, professional manager, PME, all the other things that you do in the military. So I was like, okay, well, I'm set up for something. I don't know what. So then, I got approved for retirement. And I said, well, let's move to Florida. We were living in Illinois at the time. We were stationed there and had never been down here. Was just like, all right, well, here we go. So, we started looking at houses and wanted to buy new construction. So found a place, found a builder, started putting all that together, and they made us come down here to pick out the design options for the house. And being military, I was like, I don't know, just put something kind of tan in there. If I don't like it, I'll change it. White, tan, I don't know. I don't care. Just carpet, tile, whatever. They're like, no, it doesn't work that way. You actually have to come down here and pick out the faucets and pick out the shingles and all the other stuff. So we came down here, and the design center was across the street from a law school. And I was like, let's see what happens. And I went back to Illinois because, we had to go back and finish everything up there, and called the school and said, what do I do to get in? And they're like, you got to take the LSAT. I was like, oh, right. I saw that movie, Legally Blonde, right? So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll take the LSAT. Like, how hard can it be? And took the LSAT, went to St. Louis to do that. And
did you study for the LSAT?
For like 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't recommend.
And you passed first try?
I got the score that I needed to be accepted by that one college across the street from the design center.
And that's the only school you applied to?
That's the only school I applied to.
That's amazing.
I love how on the fly you decided to become a lawyer. That's amazing.
Well, it was, I was just like, okay, yep. Because the way the school did, so they took your LSAT score and they took your undergrad GPA. And because I waited to go to college, I think I was.
There's a value in that.
There's a value in that. So I graduated my undergrad with a 3.9 GPA. So they took that 3.9 and they took my LSAT and they said, there is a good chance. Well, they said, there's a good chance you'll be an okay lawyer. And I'm like, good. Perfect. So I
can't remember what for graduate school, for master's degrees, was it the GMAT or something? I think that's what it's called.
Is it GRE? No.
There's one to get into graduate schools. Anyway, I didn't want to take it. And I looked for schools that didn't require it. And I got my master's at the University of San Diego because they looked at my experience, job history, military history. And oh, by the way, I had that thing going for me called the GI Bill, which you probably did too. And they're like, oh, you got money? Come on in. You get in, sir. So that's probably what happened with you too. You got some money. You had the GI Bill, so they probably said, yeah, sure, we'll take you.
So the law school is a private school. And so the way the GI Bill works with private school is they only give you, they only, so if you're going to public school, I don't know if there's a cap. I don't know what the cap is. But if it's private school, they would cap you at $25,000 a year. So they said $25,000 a year, that's all you get from your GI Bill. And then you have a certain number of years, which I think they've changed it now. You have longer to use your GI Bill. I don't know if it ever expires. I don't know. I think I still have time left on it, oddly enough. But so because I had that GPA and everything, it qualified me for a 50% scholarship.
Okay.
So law school at this private school is $50,000 a year.
Okay.
So right off the jump, I had $25,000 taken care of because of the undergrad GPA, my undergrad GPA. So all that was left was that $25,000, which, oh, by the way, that was the cap for private tuition from the GI Bill.
Okay.
That's how mine worked with University of San Diego was private. They did something similar to that.
Yep. Yeah. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to law school.
So how much longer after you retired? How long did it take Tommy to get to the same spot?
So I think my retirement application was approved, I want to say February, and his was approved in April.
Wow.
Okay, so pretty close together.
Pretty close. We had a dual retirement, which up until that point I'd never seen one, had never been to one, had never heard of one, but we were like, we'll just have a dual retirement.
Nice.
And so because I outranked him, there's the whole protocol of who gets retired first, and you have to go by the higher ranking person. And anyway, it was interesting. It was very interesting to see how that went.
So now you leave, you started, and how long did you study for? What was the whole period? About 4 years?
So law school's 3 years.
So 3 years. Okay. So you studied for 3 years. Before you get to practice, you guys now, did he go straight into being a firefighter outside, or was there a process there as well?
There was a process there. So the state of Florida there's a course that will take military firefighters and kind of say, okay, what you did here is what you do in Florida now. And it's like a fast track certification type thing. However, they never have enough people to fill the class.
Okay.
So they never actually have the class. So it's kind of it's like, look what we did to help. Oh, by the way, there's never enough people. So
we didn't do it.
So he was told at the time, just go ahead and you've got your GI Bill, just go ahead and roll into, start with your EMT and then roll into your paramedic, because the county only opens up hiring every so often, and the hiring window is from here to here and you're going to miss it. So for the first couple of years, we were just professional students.
Okay.
So we retired our retirement ceremony was in June. We were effectively retired August 1st of 2014. I started law school in September, and he started EMT school somewhere around there.
Okay.
And
did you guys struggle with that, or was it? Did you like it? Like, what was the mindset when you were professional students?
I was on vacation.
Yeah.
Compared to where you were, I suppose it was awesome.
All I have to do is show up to class and read like 500 pages before class. Mere child's play. I was like, this is awesome. And, I didn't have class every single day. So, and he didn't have class every single day. So there were lots of days that we were tearing it up.
So you're getting retirement pay plus GI Bill pay. Right. You guys were living fine and enjoying life.
So we were getting our retirement pay, and then so when you're a full-time student with the GI Bill, they were paying a housing stipend.
Okay.
So I think it was like $1,750 a month for each of us, because we were both getting it in our own right.
Which was lucky enough that both of you could study at the same time. Now, at this time, did you guys have kids at that time?
Yes.
Right, so you're raising kids well. Okay, so this is where it gets super interesting for me, right? So you come out of the military, you go straight into school, right? You've got kids. Now you're in civilian life, right? Now you have to. Now, because both of you are military, obviously at home it's not going to change as much, but now everything outside your house and everything to do with the kids is now empathy, feelings, crazy people, doing normal things that you're not used to.
Right.
I mean, they were in the Air Force. They weren't that far removed from civilian life.
But it's you go from a structured life.
I'm just messing around.
Right, and now you've got to deal with the craziness of the real world,
It's
right,
true,
outside
though.
of that.
Yeah, no, you're right.
How did you guys adapt to that? As a couple, what did you do?
So there was a little sidestep in the journey to law school. So because we weren't retired, or we weren't receiving our retirement pay, we didn't start receiving that till August. We had to have so many weeks, and you know this. We had to have so many weeks of paychecks in order to close on our house. So we had to get temporary jobs, right? So Tommy got a quick job working at Publix.
Okay.
And I started working at USAA. So I went through, they had a military program it was like boots to auto adjuster or something like that. So that was kind of, I think that helped because we were all military folks in this course learning to be auto insurance adjusters.
Okay.
And I remember them telling us, they said, okay, you're in the civilian world now. If people are standing up talking, you can't be like, hey, shut the fuck up, somebody's talking. Like you can, in the military, be like, hey, sit down, don't get up and walk around. You're like, people are people now. You have to have feelings, and you have to say, I'm sorry, could you please sit down? Like this is not appropriate. And I'm like, what? This is not right. I don't like this at all. But that was kind of my precursor for what was to come.
Okay, so it kind of was a soft landing for you.
Right.
Did they put you on the phone at all?
No, I never spoke with a live person. I was still doing the training calls when I got picked up for law school, and USAA couldn't work with my training schedule or with my law school schedule, so I ended up not doing that. So, I did not, because even those training videos and anybody that's worked in that type of call center environment, oh my gosh. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way.
I did that for years. It's a horrible job.
It's horrible.
It's a horrible job.
So, that whole aspect of it, and we're still very military. You have a routine. You have the things you do. All of it just stayed.
So you guys are super structured at home.
We've gotten a little.
I can inspect your
now.
beds now, and everything's tidied up and cleaned in. Like
the beds are made. They're not made like they used to be, but the beds are made. That's one thing that, first thing you do in the morning, you get up, you make your bed. And that's, teaching the kids that. They hated it. They're like, well, if I just cover the white, if I just cover it up, is it fine? I'm like, no, that's good for day one. We're past day one. So, no, but the beds are made. It's not like it used to be. I don't line my shoes up anymore. I do put them away usually. I went through a time period where I didn't, but my oldest.
Is there anything that you obsess over as a result of the military?
I think a lot of times it's what time it is.
Yeah, that was my obsession.
That's
why it's on my arm.
everything's scheduled.
That's
how it used to be, right?
Yes, and I've worked really hard to not show up to things 30 minutes early because nobody else is there. And then I panic because then I'm like, oh gosh, did I miss something? Did they cancel it? Are they even going to show up? I don't want to sit here and be stood up on whatever. Like, then all of that. So there's a lot of anxiety with
that. Sports and military, a combination, right? And then what I did in the military and government space was all about time-sensitive missions. Everything was just based on time. Everything. And so I was obsessed with it. And even I've gotten way better than I've ever been, but just going to a friend's birthday party, if I'm late or we're not leaving at a certain time, it would cause me just arguments with my wife and unnecessary stuff. And now I've overcome a lot of that, but that was a big time. I think that's a consistent thing across the board with military.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I started breaking myself when we were always the first people to show up at the party, because it was like, oh, the party starts at 2. Well, we got to be there.
I knew some military folks like that.
And you and Tommy are exactly the same with us.
And so we show up and we're like, there's nobody here. Did they cancel the party? Like, what happened?
There's a guy I'm thinking of that I worked with in the corporate job. Was a retired first sergeant in the Army. He was a paratrooper, all that stuff. Great guy. And I always had to be very wise to what time we would have some people, or sometimes I'd have to be wise to sending the invite time, because if it started at 2 o'clock, he was there at 1:59 and then helping you with whatever you needed to help with, which was kind of cool. But at the same time, I'm like, bro, we're not ready for you.
Yep.
That's the DNA. Can't help it.
I still use military time. My kids know military time. One of my first jobs while I was in law school, I got yelled at because she had never served in the military, and she's like, "Why do you use military time?"
I'm just saying that military time makes way more sense to me.
So much more sense.
I'm going to tell you, as someone I was not in the military, but I use military time for everything because the other way it doesn't make sense to me.
I don't like it. I'm like, cause
we used to use Zulu time
Yes.
for intel missions. We would use Zulu a lot. That really throw you off.
Yep.
Zulu works best.
GMT -4. So it's like once you get used to that, the lingo and everything, you're like, oh yeah, well it's this, but it's that. But military time to me is just like, so I find myself now, my coping mechanism for that is when somebody says, oh, we're going to do that, at 7, and I'm like, the first one or the second one? I got to know. And then they're like,
that's funny.
The first one or the second one, like, who's up at 7 a.m.? And I'm like, who's not?
Let me shift this gears a little bit. I know we're kind of running out of time, but
this has been fun for me.
As a veteran, it goes fast. As a veteran, and having a veteran on here, something that's always passionate for me, that we talk mental health always. That's a big thing for us, and we talk to men. But as you know, veteran suicide is a big problem. Male suicide's a big problem. You do estate planning, so you're familiar with death just based on what you do for a living. What, in terms of females that are struggling with mental health, what advice, based on your experiences, what would you share to our female listeners around mental health from a veteran's perspective, or whatever perspective you want to give?
Even how having your husband being from the military as well, he obviously comes with his own set of challenges for that. Also, identifying that within your relationship and just being aware that these are things that are real, and you got to deal with them.
I think being married to military and then someone that's in a first responder position, I mean, there's a ton to unpack there with that. And I think when it comes to that relationship, a lot of times I didn't understand a lot of it at first. Like, I knew my stuff, and it's like, okay, I know my stuff, but how do I understand your stuff and relate it to my stuff so that we can work this out? And for him, okay, well, being in the military, you're constantly cleaning something, straightening something, organizing something, you're constantly doing something. And that had always been part of just me.
Yeah.
They call it OCD, fine. You look in the medicine cabinet in my house, everything's labeled. I've got eyes and ears, I've got allergies, I've got, okay, all this stuff. With him, he's like, I need to do a menial, thoughtless task. And that's how he copes with things. Okay. So there are things that I will organize and do, but then, stuff like mowing the grass, mopping the floor, doing laundry, folding laundry, putting laundry away. There are things that he needs to do just to decompress and be able to I just need something that's mindless. So I find myself like pulling back on a lot of that.
To allow him to take that role.
Like, and sometimes there's that part of me that's like, Angela, just empty the dishwasher. Like, it'll take you 5 minutes. And, just don't leave it for him. Don't be lazy. And I'm like, I'm not being lazy. I am helping him just do what he needs to do. From a woman's perspective and a female veteran's perspective who's also married to a veteran, a lot of times it's, pulling back on feeling like you need to fix everything. You don't have to fix everything. Life is messy. Things are messy. It's sometimes,
just let it be messy.
Just let it be messy. Eat ice cream for dinner. Nobody gives a shit. But also, it's find your outlet, whether it's working out, whether it's, drawing, singing, dancing, whatever it is, therapeutic ways. I can tell you this may not be the experience that every person has had, but I hear it more often than not. The VA mental health system is trash.
It is.
Yeah. It is absolute trash.
Absolutely is.
And
yeah. I've done so much research on it. I'm like, I don't understand.
I was actually tagged with a Facebook post yesterday. My wife tagged me actually with someone like their spouse is a veteran dealing with the VA with mental health stuff, and her and I had a separate conversation about it. The reality is, if you're going to the VA for your mental health support, you're not going to get what you need. Right. You have to go outside of those channels.
They will do some things, and I'll say it's gotten better than it was. So Vietnam veterans, when you compare that, but then you're also comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah.
That's it's
a very different world.
It's a different world, and there's a lot less stigma attached to mental health issues than what used to be.
Sure.
They used to call it shell shock. They used to do, all these, it was anything but calling it what it was.
Story to that point, my uncle was in Vietnam. He was an MP. Never talked about it ever. He's passed, but I went home when I was in the military. I went to where my parents are from, and he sat there and talked to me for probably 2 hours and told me all about Vietnam. And they were all amazed, and it was because he didn't want to talk to anybody else about it because of what he went through. But I was a fellow uniform wearer, so he understood that.
That was an outlet for him as well.
It was. But he was, I think, that wasn't too long before he died. I want to say he was in his 70s when that happened.
What? And it probably made a big difference to him, and even to what you said. So you identified in your partner something they needed, which you could fix, but didn't. You took a step back.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I was asking question. How did you figure out that he needs to unload the dishwasher? Did you just figure,
or did you communicate this? Did you guys sit down and talk about it, or did you kind of figure it out as you progressed?
We kind of figured it out as we progressed because so with his work schedule, he he has certain days on, certain days off, and I would say when I was working for someone else, now that I have control of my own schedule, it's a lot better. That didn't come without its own challenges. There were challenges there just getting all that. But when I worked for someone else and I was on their time schedule, a lot of times I was not home.
Yeah.
So he was home alone, and I'm like, "What'd you do with your day?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I laid on the couch for a little bit, kind of tried to nap, couldn't nap, so I got up and I cleaned the windows, and then I vacuumed the floor, and I did this." And he goes through his whole day, and I'm like, "You didn't leave any housework for me. Like, what am I going to do when I get home?" And he's like, "Oh," and I think at first he kind of felt guilty about it. He was like, "Oh crap, I didn't let her do her wifely duties." And then I asked him, at one point I was like, "Why do you do all this?" And he's like, "Well, I need to stay busy doing a menial task." And I was like, "Oh, does it help with like work stuff, or does it make you tired? Like, what does it do? Like, do you like doing housework?"
Just keeps his mind active.
Right.
Just therapeutic.
And he's just like, it's something
what's in my head is Tommy's like got a dish towel, and he's like, one dish at it, because you said it takes me 5 minutes to do this and I can knock it out. In my head, he's like shining every dish and then putting it away with a smile on his face.
So, he'll take a dish towel or paper towel. He'll wipe everything off before he puts it in the cabinet, and I'm like, "It's dry. Just put it up there." I don't know. Well, just stack it. Put it in there.
He's making sure it's dry.
He's just like, just make sure it's dry, and
it helps him. It helps him with his process.
I think that's great.
That's great that you also the fact that you guys had it communicated, and you this is again down to the crux of it is. It's having that communication base to be able to understand each other enough to identify these and go, I need to take a step back. He needs that. I don't need that. I have my outlets. What are your outlets?
So before I get to that part, I did want to say, I think what clued me in on like listening to him and being like, okay, look, what is this doing for you? Was he showed it to me first. So when our daughter was born, so he's used to waking up to the sound of alarms and lights and stuff like that. Now with my oldest, I got up with her every time there was a whimper, anything. That was, that was my world. Yeah. I slept in a constant state of just like, okay, is she going to wake up? Is she going to sleep all night? Oh crap, she slept through the night. And did she die overnight? Like what happened? So it was like this constant state of just panic. Well, then when he and I got together and we had our daughter, he would wake up in the night. And so by the time I kind of was like, oh, it's time to get up and feed the baby. So I would get up and kind of, stumble into her room. He's already sitting there in the rocker with her, just, doing the thing. And I'm like, dude, you didn't wake me up. It was my turn to get up with her. And he's like, I got it. He's like, just go get some rest. You need rest. Because he recognized that I needed the rest. And so it's like, fast forward to, because when we were tired, she was almost 2.
Yeah.
So this was, I had that partner that was like, okay, he's listening to me. Like, he's seeing things in me that I can't see in myself right now because, he recognizes I'm tired, and he's just like, sleep. I got this. I'll sleep later. I'm off tomorrow. I can sleep all day. It's fine. So I think that kind of motivated me in a way to be like, okay, well, what can I be doing for him that's giving it back?
That's good.
Yeah.
And so it kind of, I won't say it didn't come without challenges, because there are challenges in every relationship.
Of course.
But I think when we figured that out, it was like, oh, okay. So there are things, like I'll ask him, hey, is there anything you want me to do while you're at work? And he's like, nope. It's just relax, chill. It's your, chill time or whatever. And then, same thing. He'll say, do you need me to do anything in particular? This is what I have planned today, and I have all this stuff.
We talk about this, like, some of the men we work with, especially in relationships, like, not that we're relationship experts, that's something we're all striving to work on and be better at. But what you're like describing there is the servant mindset, to where I serve my wife, and by default, she looks for ways and opportunities to serve me back. It's not that that's my expectation. And I think that's great and amazing that you guys have. You
figured it out without. Right. We tell a lot of the guys, and we live it like a lot of couples. I do this, you do that. Right, and I'll only do that if you do this. And we've all, like, I find in my person, if you live your life like that, all you're doing is you're competing with the person who's the most important in your life.
Right.
Yeah.
The minute you don't care and you communicate and you go, what can I do for you?
Right.
And you go do it, you just have a much more blissful life.
Right. And I think a lot of it, I don't know where I came across this at one point, but there was something that I either read or saw that said, as a couple, when you stop seeing an issue or something like that as you against them, and you put on the same jersey and you realize they're the same team, and you're tackling the problem together. It's like, massive. Okay, how do we do this? How do we figure this out? And okay, well, what can you do? What can I do? And you look at it as a team effort, and then you come to a resolution, and then you're like, okay, cool. What's next?
Yeah.
So to get to the outlet, my outlet is I love working out with my husband. I'm if somebody said, hey, let's go to the gym, I'd be like, can I bring my friend? Because he's my favorite person. And so when he and I first got together, I had done a couple of races. Running was my vice for a long time, because I was just like, and you asked me the other day, you're like, why are you running? So, but running,
you like it.
Running was my thing. It was like, I could zone out. I could just run through all the crazy scenarios in my head. I could think about things. I could have all those mental arguments, just run it all out. When he and I got together, I said, let's go for a run. And he said, running's punishment. Sports mindset. Running's punishment. I don't want to run. And I'm like, just go. Let's go. So we ran, it was like 2 miles. And I said, keep going, keep going. And by the end of it, we'd run like 5 miles.
Wow.
And he's like, I haven't run 5 miles in a long time. I don't like this. And I was like, come on, it's fun. It's fun. You got to admit, it's fun. So then one of the next gifts that I gave him was a registration to the Air Force half marathon.
Oh.
I said, we're going to do more running. And he's like, oh, no. He said, you're not going to get me to run a half marathon. And I was like, so then we ran a half marathon, right? Because it's I said, but I like it. And he said, well, you like it. So we ran a half marathon, and I'm not a fast runner. I've never been a fast runner. I tell people I'm built for comfort, not speed. Yep. I can run for days. And I would tell him during our training runs, he's faster. He just is. And he's used to wearing a lot more gear when he's having to move with a purpose, right? So, of course, that, lends itself to being a faster runner. So I would tell him, I'm like, listen, if you need to run ahead. Like, I'll catch up with you. And from the first time that we ran together, all the way through every run that we've ever done, he has never left my side.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of like, I'm like, dude, that's got to be killing you, because you just want to get it over with, right? But every single run, so we've done half marathons. We ran a full marathon. If you look at our finished picture on the full marathon that we did, we were side by side.
That's good.
Yeah, that's awesome. It just shows that he's running the marathon with you.
With me. Not
for himself and
Well,
together.
But it's also a life metaphor there too.
Yeah.
Like, when you think about like something we've said as well, life is a marathon, but if you treat every day as a sprint, I can run a really good 100 yards today, and I just keep, I stick by the side of, we need community as men, and women need it too. We need the right people around us. We need the right surrounding of people that support us. And I think it's a great life metaphor there too, because you're running a race with someone.
Yeah. And you're sticking together. You have the ability to overtake them, but you want to do it together, which is great.
Right. And that's something that, we were fortunate that we found that and, were able to do it. Now, there were times, especially when we were training for the marathon, we had 2 little kids. It's like, you can't just, here, hop on back and we're just going to go run.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of the treadmill training for the marathon just because we had to. You had to. And so, we found out that the treadmills at a particular YMCA in Southern Illinois shut off after an hour. And you can get through an entire episode of Law and Order SVU while you're running on a treadmill. So because they had the TVs on there, and I'd be like, I'll just watch SVU. I don't know, Criminal Intent. I don't know, whatever.
Remember SVU? Yeah. A good show. So,
and he's like, I can get through in the time that I'm doing my long run, I can get through a whole soccer game. And so he would watch soccer, and so, but we found the ways to make it work. And so for the outlet piece, my outlet is, I need to be active. I need to be doing something, whether it's working out, walking, we talked about using the weighted vest and everything. And, it's just being there. Now, it goes back to law school as well, because in law school, there's a lot of stuff that I have to just like talk out and make sense to myself, because I gotta say it in order for it to make complete sense. So I would start talking about something, and I know he was a million miles away. He didn't hear a dang word I said. And I would say, does that sound logical to you? And he's like, yeah, babe, sounds great. I'm like, you didn't hear anything. So, but somehow, in spite of it, I made it through law school. But I would say, I'd study for a little bit, and I'm like, all right, let's go for a walk. And so we would go and we'd walk a couple of miles, and I'd just talk. And he's the kind of person, he could be silent for 3 days. Yeah. And he's just like, she talks enough for both of us, I can just be quiet. I'm like, eventually I'll run out of words. I don't think I will. But that, that's how we do. He'll be quiet, and I talk through all of the things that I just need to talk out. And
you're both there, you're present, and you get that time together, and you're able to kind of interact. So that's a good testament to in relationships, is I think you guys there's a connection and an understanding of each other, and that understanding has allowed you to have a life where you can thrive, but also thrive as individuals in a partnership, which I think is very important as well.
Right. I think so too. And I always laugh when I bring him around, like when we go places together and people meet him. So when most people just interact with me just by myself, they're like, oh man, like, she's fun, she talks, she laughs, she's got a dark sense of humor, she's everywhere all the time. And they meet him and he's silent. Yeah. And they're like, is he gonna kill me? And I'm like, no.
The true yin and yang. Oh, complete opposites.
And it's it was just one of those where everybody's like, I swear your husband hates me. And I'm like, he doesn't like most people, but he's
because he's here, he likes you already, because you wouldn't pitch up otherwise.
But he's like thinking of all the things that have I run on you before? Have I like, ugh, now what? Kind of thing. So he's very, very observant, and he reads energy really well. Like he'll meet people and he's like, I don't like that.
Just doesn't like the energy.
Yeah.
I actually received a compliment like that recently, where Sam did a show and there was a group of people that fell under the same coach as her, and there was a guy that was a former Marine. We spent the day together, so we got to know each other a little bit. And anyways, at the end of the show, they had to go off in a separate way, where they were backstage, and he ended up telling Sam, I really like your husband. He reads rooms and energy really well. It's a veteran thing. I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with that. So before we close off, just want to let everyone know, so Angela runs Ace Maven Legal. We're going to have the boys from Second Amendment Armory on this week as well. You guys work very well together with Chris. Again, wills, trusts, gun trust specifically. So I'm going to put your website at the bottom of the podcast so everyone can see where you come from. And if you want to take a minute, take a good shout out, let everybody know what you do, so that we can put that out there for you. What do they need? Think of it like a 30 seconds that you do every week, so go for it.
Oh gosh, I haven't even prepped for that one for tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow I get 60 seconds, which is like awesome. So I help make death and dying a lot easier for folks, and that's kind of it in a nutshell. So I am not Dr. Kevorkian. I don't do any type of assisted suicide or anything like that, but basically we help people make sure that their affairs are in order. And if you've ever gone through probate, or you know someone has gone through probate, or anyone that has needed someone to make a medical decision for them that was unable to because of legal constraints, I help people set up that pathway that keeps the courts the least amount involved. It allows that person to designate the people or the person that they want to make those legal, mental, and financial things, those decisions for them. And it helps keep their stuff out of probate. Probate in the state of Florida is a different animal than it is in pretty much any other state. It can be lengthy, it can be expensive, and the only people that truly make out are the attorneys and the creditors.
Yeah.
And so, if we can save folks money doing that by making sure they have their affairs in order and that their assets are protected and things like that, then I've done a service.
Perfect.
So,
I'll look for Ace Making Deal. We'll have them at the bottom. And you can do any state or just Florida?
just Florida.
Perfect. So we'll make sure that everyone know that. And then great information on relationships, which is great. And thank you for telling us your story of how you got through into the military. I think it was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening.